Did you know that in one of Europe's wealthiest nations, the rate of homelessness is 50 times higher than in some countries considered poor? Today, we challenge everything you think you know. We will analyse 10 countries in a brutal comparison, alternating the 5 that have almost solved the problem with the 5 where the situation is out of control. Be careful though. Many governments sweep the problem under the rug by publishing partial counts. And we have selected only those that dare to publish official, verifiable data. You'll find the sources and technical details in the description. Get ready, the gap between 5th and 1st place is staggering. Welcome to Amazing Europe. Number 5, among the best, Poland. Until 20 years ago, Poland was synonymous with emigration and economic hardship. Today, it is an ascending power where unemployment is at historic lows. But behind Warsaw's orderly streets, there is a social reality very different from that of Western Europe. Who ends up on the streets here? It's not rebellious youth. The demographic profile is strikingly specific. Over 83% are men, the majority between 40 and 60 years old. It's the middle generation, separated fathers or workers left behind by the system and, often, by alcoholism. Social assistance here is strict. Many shelters enforce a zero-tolerance rule. If you drink, you don't get in. Yet, despite this rigidity, Poland records a virtuous rate of about 8 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants. Why so few? The reason is primarily cultural, a still traditional society where family and Catholic networks act as a social safety net long before the state intervenes. In Poland, it's unlikely that a brother or a parent would let you end up on the street. In addition, the government uses a very pragmatic counting method, the so-called point in time, a snapshot taken on a single winter night that records who truly has no shelter or is in an institution, leaving out less severe situations. But there is one last, more cynical reason: the export of despair. With open borders, the most vulnerable have tried their luck in the West, sometimes failing. If you walk into a homeless shelter in Berlin today, you'll discover that many residents speak Polish. The numbers here are low also because the crisis has physically moved beyond the border, and it is precisely by crossing that border that the numbers explode. Number 5, among the worst, Germany. We're talking about the locomotive of Europe, and yet here we find one of the continent's most serious housing crises, with over 260,000 people recorded as homeless. How is that possible? Part of the answer lies in the methodology this country uses to count the homeless. Like Poland, Germany records both those sleeping rough and those in shelters. But the count is not limited to a single night. It's an administrative registry that covers the whole year and tracks hundreds of thousands of people, including refugees. And here is the second part of the answer. About 2/3 of those registered as homeless are not German citizens. The face of the crisis here is mainly that of a Syrian, Afghan, or, more recently, Ukrainian family. Germany opened its doors to millions of refugees, but did not build enough homes to absorb the impact. In this way, the housing market is saturated, leaving fewer properties available for Germans. This situation has produced a rate of about 26 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants, triple that of Poland. But who are the Germans in this statistic? They number roughly 90,000, pushed to society's margins, mostly because of debt, divorce, or depression. It is the failure of the individual welfare state, 50-year-old men, labourers and craftsmen who lost their jobs and, soon after, their homes. In Germany, 2 tragedies coexist: the reception crisis for newcomers and the abandonment of the country's own citizens. The system guarantees survival, but it has become a trap that can no longer provide a real home. Number 4, among the best, Finland. Finland is perhaps the only country in Europe where the number of homeless people is not rising but collapsing. We rank it 4th among the best, but morally, Helsinki deserves the gold medal. Why? Unlike others, it has no cultural advantages. Young people leave home early, the climate is deadly, and alcoholism is a long-standing scourge. On paper, Finland should be a disaster. Instead, it has almost solved the problem. The secret is 2 words: housing first. While the rest of the world uses a stepped system, first you recover, then maybe you'll get a home, Finland has inverted the logic. The approach is radical. First, we give you the keys to a real apartment with no conditions. Then, once you're secure, we help you with everything else. A home is not a reward, but the starting point. This method, combined with a ruthlessly honest count that even includes those temporarily staying with friends, has produced incredible results. The rate has fallen to about 7 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants, halving the problem in just over a decade. The few who remain are the most complex cases, people with severe addictions or mental illness. But the real genius of the system is economic. The Finns calculated that a homeless person in hospital or prison cost the state €15,000 more per year than giving them a roof and a support team. The Finns understood that charity pays off not only morally, but also economically. But what happens when the state, instead of building homes, sells them all to private buyers? Number 4 among the worst, the Czech Republic and Slovakia. What happens when a state sells all its housing and abandons its citizens to a wild market? To find out, we go to where Czechoslovakia once stood. We have grouped the Czech Republic and Slovakia together at 4th place among the worst, both because they have almost identical homelessness rates, and because, although they are two different nations today, they share the same deep scar, the trauma of the post-communist transition. When the wall fell, public housing was privatised overnight. Those who could not afford market rents were swept away. But the way this crisis appears today is different. In the Czech Republic, poverty has become a business. Speculators buy dilapidated buildings and convert them into residential hostels, which have become the de facto home for the poorest Czech citizens. Middle-aged men, divorced or former industrial workers, end up here because they cannot find anything else, also because this country is experiencing a severe housing crisis. The state pays them a housing allowance, but that money goes straight into the speculators' pockets. It is an industry of misery. In Slovakia, by contrast, the crisis wears the face of rural segregation, although in the cities, the lack of low-cost housing is creating problems identical to those in the Czech Republic. Here, the numbers are also very high because of the tens of thousands of people, largely from the Roma minority, who live in informal settlements. Shacks without running water or electricity. Together, these two nations record a frightening rate of about 28 to 30 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants. They did not lose a home. Often, they never had one. They are the result of a state that, by withdrawing, allowed the market to exploit poverty or society to segregate the weakest. Number 3, among the best, Spain. How can a country with one of the highest youth unemployment rates in Europe officially have so few homeless people? The answer is not found in the state's laws, but in the unwritten rules of Spanish culture. We rank it 3rd among the best, and Spain is a living paradox. Its strength is not an efficient welfare system like the Scandinavian one, but a powerful and invisible social buffer, the family. In Spain, it is culturally normal for an adult in difficulty to be taken back into the family home. This family shield absorbs economic shocks that in Sweden or Germany would send you straight to a hostel and into a statistic. But there is a second outlet. Spain counts only those who knock on the doors of social services, ignoring an army of invisibles, the ocupas. After the housing bubble, millions of apartments remained empty. Many people, instead of ending up on the street, illegally occupy these homes. Technically, they have a roof, so for the state, they are not a problem. This informal system produces an official rate that is very low, about 5 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants. The face of the homeless person visible in Madrid is not so much the Spaniard protected by family or hidden in an occupied home, as the immigrant. Over half of those asking for help are foreign, because they are the ones without that safety net. But what happens when even a wealthy economy can no longer build homes? Number 3, among the worst, France. Paris, the city of lights, of fashion, the icon of world romance. But look down from the monuments and you'll find another city, parallel and desperate. France ranks 3rd among the worst, not because it lacks welfare, which is vast and costly, but because the system is designed to manage the emergency, not to solve it. Although France has an immense stock of public housing in the disadvantaged suburbs, the system is saturated. with waiting lists that stretch for years. As a result, the state spends billions to plug the emergency, paying for rooms in social hotels that are now collapsing. It's a bureaucratic limbo that you enter but cannot exit. This approach has produced an army of 330,000 people without a home, a monstrous number that owes something to France's brutal honesty in counting what others ignore, namely the bidonvilles. Yes, in 2024, in one of the G7 nations, shantytowns still exist on the outskirts of the metropolises. All of this yields an alarming rate of 31 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants. But the most painful fact is the face of this crisis. Forget the stereotype of the lone clochard under the bridges of the Seine. Today, the homeless are increasingly entire families. It is estimated that over 40,000 French children live in makeshift accommodation, going to school in the morning without knowing where they will sleep at night. It is the French paradox, a system that keeps you alive, feeds you, houses you in a hotel, but can no longer give you the one thing you truly need: a house key. Is there a way to protect yourself from all this without depending on the state? The answer is yes, and it is to be found in the Balkans. Number 2 among the best, Croatia. Imagine a country where the word eviction is far less frightening than elsewhere. While in London or Paris, people spend half their salary on rent, in Croatia, the real estate market capitalism has hit a wall. We place it second among the best. The secret of this success is not a wealthy state welfare like Switzerland's, but a historical anomaly. Croatia has one of the highest home ownership rates in Europe, above 90%, not because everyone is rich, but because of the legacy of Yugoslavia's dissolution. In the 1990s, the state allowed citizens to buy the public apartments they lived in for symbolic sums. The result is a concrete shield. Today, even poor pensioners or unemployed people own the walls they live within, and you cannot be evicted from a home that is yours. This ownership barrier, combined with a family network that does not tolerate abandoning relatives, keeps the official rate very low, about 3 to 5 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants. Who ends up on the street here? Almost exclusively men between 50 and 60 who have burned every bridge with their family because of alcohol or gambling. Be careful though, the price to pay is overcrowding. Often 3 generations live in 60 square meters. But in the fight against homelessness, Croatia demonstrates an uncomfortable truth for the West. Distributing property, rather than concentrating it in the hands of large groups, is one of the most effective vaccines against homelessness, even if alone it is not enough. But what happens when the state is so omnipresent that it becomes suffocating? Number 2, among the worst, Sweden. When we think of Sweden, we imagine perfect welfare. And yet, the data show a paradox. Sweden has higher homelessness rates than Germany or France. The explanation is not a lack of resources, but the rigidity of the system. The Swedish rental market is hyper-regulated. To get public housing, there are waiting lists that last years. In the private market, landlords demand ironclad guarantees, high income, and no outstanding debts. If you have a registered debt or you are a refugee without a verifiable credit history, the market shuts its doors on you. It is a very strict entrance screening. To manage those left outside, the state created the secondary housing market. Social services rent apartments from private owners and sublet them to people who don't meet the requirements. These people have a roof, but they do not have their own contract. They live under the supervision of social workers. Because they depend on the municipality, they are counted in the statistics, pushing the rate to about 33 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants. Who are they? The data show an increase in structural homelessness, not just addicts anymore, but increasingly families and workers facing financial problems. Unlike Finland, Sweden often applies the stepped model. To obtain independent housing, you must prove you are following the rules and making progress in reintegration. A meritocratic system that nevertheless keeps thousands of people in the system for years. Note, however, that this statistic often excludes the most visible homeless who lack residency, such as EU migrants sleeping rough, who remain statistical ghosts. But is there a place where wealth is not managed by bureaucracy and actually solves problems? Number 1 among the best, Switzerland. We are in the most expensive country in the world. Here, a coffee can cost €5, and the average rent tops €2,000. On paper, it should be a factory of poverty. Instead, the homeless are almost extinct. Switzerland takes first place among the best. The secret is not magic, but a preventive and pervasive welfare system. Here, extreme poverty is not seen as fate, but as an administrative error to be corrected immediately. If you lose your job and you are a resident, social assistance often steps in before eviction. It pays your rent, medical bills, and guarantees you an income. In return, however, the state enters your life. It monitors your accounts and decides where you should live. It is a strict social pact. You lose some privacy, but you do not end up under a bridge. This system of total protection has produced the lowest rate in Europe, about 2.5 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants. In practice, the entire Swiss Confederation has fewer homeless people than a single neighbourhood in Berlin. Who are the few still outside? Mainly people with severe psychiatric problems who refuse help, and, above all, the irregular immigrants who do not dare request assistance for fear of expulsion. Moreover, the cost of living is so prohibitive that Switzerland naturally expels poverty. Those who fail here often do not stay on the street but emigrate to cheaper countries. But what happens when a rich country stops protecting its citizens and lets the market run completely wild? Welcome to housing hell. But before revealing number one and looking at the patterns that link the countries with the most and the fewest homeless people, if you found this video informative, we kindly ask you to support our project with a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you don't miss any of our videos on Europe. And while we're at it, we remind you of our channel America versus Europe, where we compare all European countries, the United States and Canada across different factors. Number one among the worst, the United Kingdom. Welcome to the world's 6th largest economy, a place where having a full-time job is no longer a guarantee of a roof over your head. In the United Kingdom, the crisis is not caused by a refugee surge as in Germany, nor by excessive bureaucracy as in Sweden. It is the total failure of the free market. It is the same Anglo-Saxon disease devastating Ireland as well, seemingly very wealthy financial economies where housing has become a speculative asset for investors, not a place to live. In London, as in Dublin, the historic sale of public housing and runaway rents have broken the social compact. And in fact, making a parenthesis about Ireland, that country has also been experiencing a genuine homelessness crisis in recent years, and it narrowly missed entering the list of the 5 worst countries. But the absolute negative record belongs to the United Kingdom, with an estimated rate between 43 and 50 homeless people per 10,000 inhabitants. Forget the stereotype of the vagabond. British statistics reveal a far more disturbing reality, that of the statutory homeless. There are over 110,000 families trapped in temporary accommodation. They do not sleep on the streets, but in squalid bed and breakfasts or former offices converted into dormitories, paid for by taxpayers at extortionate prices. Who lives there? Often the working homeless. Nurses, shop assistants, teachers. People who work, but whose wages no longer cover the rent. The most horrifying figure, though, concerns the future. Of this army without homes, over 145,000 are children. An entire generation growing up in temporary hotel rooms, cooking on the floor, victims of a system that has decided profit is worth more than dignity. So what links the countries that are failing? From the United Kingdom to Germany, the common thread is the withdrawal of the state. They have turned housing from a fundamental right into a speculative financial asset, or they have created bureaucratic systems that manage poverty instead of solving it. They have stopped building, letting the market devour the weakest. Conversely, what unites the best? Whether it's family in Spain, home ownership in Croatia, or housing first in Finland, the connecting theme is protection. There exists a safety net, private or public, that prevents a free fall. But why should we care? First, because it is inhuman that people in our countries live in this condition amid general indifference. But if ethics are not enough, let's talk money. Leaving people on the street is economic suicide. Finnish and British studies show that a chronic homeless person costs society up to €15,000 more per year in emergency room overload, policing and urban decay, compared with the cost of paying their rent. Maintaining the status quo is not only cruel, it is a waste of your taxes. Let's be honest, solving this crisis benefits everyone, not only the poor. It means safer cities, less crowded hospitals, and a recovered workforce. The solution is not a secret. Stop spending billions on emergency hotels that enrich speculators and start building affordable public housing, applying the Housing First model. It is therefore about being kinder, but also smarter, because a civilization is measured not only by the height of its skyscrapers, but also by the dignity it guarantees to its most vulnerable. For an overall picture of the situation, we recommend watching this video, where you will discover which are the 10 European countries with the most people at risk of poverty, a situation often hidden precisely in those countries where it is most widespread. That's all for this video. See you next time.